good evening to The Truth is Simple. I'm Dave Corm, your host. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so remember to go out and do something special for those you love, and hopefully they'll do something for you in return, right? Today we're going to do part three of our education series. We'll see how far we get today. This may or may not be our last, but it always leaves a door of opportunity for the future, for education to pop back in as something happens, right? So anyway, without further ado, let's get rolling. Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to talk education part 3, and the topic is going to be how do we make it work for all students? Well, so I'm going to kind of contrast a couple school districts that I know the most about, but I think it's universal across the board, meaning if we do it here for this school district or do it for that school district, it's going to be the same across the country. There are some small tweaks in communities just about in everything, whether you're running a business type of business somewhere. You know, certain businesses are going to work better in parts of the country than they work in other parts of the country. That's just how it works. And it's the same with education to some aspect, but as long as you have some basic guidelines as to what you think, or what you think, doesn't matter, but some basic guidelines as to how the school should operate and keep those consistent throughout the country, I think, and then find your little tweak that makes it right for your area, then I think what I'm going to discuss today is going to make sense and is going to work for basically any school district. I'm going to focus on where I came from in Southern California, Temecula Valley Unified School District, where I was a teacher there. And I'm also going to focus on Murrieta Valley Unified School District, which was like a sister city right next door to us, kind of like Las Vegas and Henderson if you're in that area, or any community really. You have Brooklyn and New York and Manhattan, right? So any big city you go to, you're going to have these little cities or these little communities next to you. So I want to talk about those two. I taught in Temecula Valley Unified School District. As I did some stats, I looked back to kind of see what the student population was, as well as Murrieta Valley Unified School District. I looked to see what that is, and the number of schools. Because I thought for where I was in education teaching there, that district was kind of small, but I thought it and the sister district, almost of the same size, kind of puts you in a sweet spot as far as education goes for how large a school district should be to run efficiently. And that's basically what we're going to try to talk about today is running a school district efficiently. Clark County, if you know anything about that, if you're in Nevada, especially in Las Vegas, like where I am here, daily news stories, whether it's something about security, whether it's something about the superintendent, or whether the teachers are going on strike, or whether there's some kind of violence at the school, or whether the education standards have suffered. It's just all over the place. I think the news almost has a specific section that they run every night. It's just about schools, and it doesn't matter kind of which channel you flip to. You almost see a mirror image of some kind of story about the school district here. So I thought, it's a large school district. I need to talk about that. I taught there briefly for 4 months, I think it was, a couple years ago, right when the year, I think it was after COVID, or was it the year after? I think it was 2021, I think it was. Not 100% sure, so if you go fact check me or whatever, he's lying. It was either 2020 or 2021. I don't recall, but I believe it was the spring of 2021 school year. All right, so Temecula Valley Unified School, its student population is roughly 28,000. The Murrieta Valley next door is 21, giving it for about 49,000 students. Temecula Valley has 29 schools, 3 of which are high schools. Murrieta Valley has 21, and as I think about it, I think they have the same 3 high schools. So there's kind of like 6 high schools in that area, and the rest of the schools are middle schools and elementary schools, with the majority most likely being elementary schools. As we looked here at Clark County, and I started to do a little research on that, I thought, I know it's a large district. It's probably one of the largest in the country, and it is. In fact, it is number 5, I believe. Behind New York, which is 1, Los Angeles 2, Chicago 3, and then Miami-Dade in Florida is number 4. Uh, when I looked at the student population compared to where I just came from in Murrieta and in Temecula, 378 schools, and that number is still growing because there's people still moving to this community, mostly from California, but from all over the states. They're moving here. So the population of the schools it continues to grow. During COVID, I think there was a slight drop where we went almost down to 300,000, or maybe slightly below, and then we've popped back up since because people are moving here. Where did those other students go? Well, they either moved out of state, or most likely they've gone to other like charter schools or private schools in the area, which significantly dropped the student head count in Clark County School District. So with that said, 378 schools, there are 480 classrooms for preschool. That was astonishing to me, with over 8,814 students enrolled. So preschools, of course, before kindergarten, could be 3 years and 4-year-olds, and maybe a few 5s that, their birthdays come towards the end of the year, so therefore they have to wait till the next year to actually get into kindergarten. So, but that's a pretty astonishing amount. 480 classrooms with 8,814 students enrolled. As far as charter schools, there are some charter schools affiliated with Clark County School District. I couldn't find an exact number, so I'm kind of guesstimating from what I saw. It's somewhere around plus or minus 25 charter schools, so you need to add that on top of the 378. They don't have a total control over those schools, but they still oversee the process for those schools. So to some aspect, the district has a little bit of control because they're getting district funding, or they're getting funding from the state to run these charter schools. And from year to year, they'll fluctuate. Some will be in this year and some will be out next year. So that's how the charter schools work a little bit. What was also astonishing to me in 2023-24 school year, so this school year right now, the free meal program here basically incorporates every student within the district. Every student gets either a breakfast and lunch and maybe a snack, or at least a lunch every day at our schools. And that's astonishing, to feed 300 and roughly 15,000 children, two meals a day. If you're in the Navy and you're on an aircraft carrier, there's about, I don't know about the newer ones today, but the ones back in the 80s and 90s, there's about 5,500 people on an aircraft carrier. It was considered a small city. And we're going to talk about that real quick, as well as far as student populations. I did a kind of a survey just to figure out, what the size of a city was in the United States. Why would I do that? To kind of compare and contrast it against the number of students in Clark County School District. So the research I went to, and I think it was a federal government website. Unfortunately, I didn't track it down or log it, so I can't really show it to you. But the average population of a city in the U.S. runs between 1,500 and 50,000 residents or people in these cities. A small city like Temecula or Murrieta, which I just talked about their school districts, have about 120,000 roughly, give or take. Somewhere they kind of fluctuate between 110 and 120, somewhere in that ballpark from year to year. So those are considered small cities in the United States. 100,000. Again, Clark County is 315,000 students. So you could say that's the size of 3 small cities. And the district runs and oversees all these. One single district oversees and operates all these different schools with all these students in it. 80% of the students, I had to look at that too, as far as their geographical or their ethnicity breakdown. 80% of the students are for minority groups, so Black, Hispanic community, Asian. We have a pretty good sized Asian community here in Las Vegas. So 80% of the school populations. It's a good mixed match of different type of students from every walk of life, every race, and every background you could think of here, and trying to find a single method to educate and teach all of these students. Of course, there's a language barrier for some, whether it's Hispanic or whether it's Asian. An Asian language or a foreign language from somewhere else is extremely hard, and a lot of these students are incorporated into English only classes to some aspect. There might be some bilingual, some of the teachers might speak a lot of Spanish and so forth in the district, but for the most part it's English only. So you have all that transitional language issues that you have to deal with these students. 59% fall into an economically disadvantaged group. So that's the majority of the ones that get the free meals and so forth. But it brings along extra issues along the way as well. And those fall like, where's this kid living? Are they living in the same place today as they were a week ago, a month ago? Are they actually now living in their car? Are they living on the street? Are they living in a shelter? Believe it or not, there is a large population, and it's not just here in Clark County. It's throughout the country at this time. These kids are moving around, so they're going from a school to another school, and then their parents are taking them to another community. So they're either trying to get back to the school that they started the school year in, or they're moving to a new school because they've moved to a new location. So that in and of itself is also a continuous problem and headache for schools and teachers and everything else in between. Let's see, the number of employees Clark County School District has is about 42,000, with 18,000 of those being teachers. I think I did a quick check on Temecula Valley Unified School District. I didn't look at Murrieta's. I think there are roughly 2,500 persons, employees working for Temecula Valley Unified School District. Much smaller. Again, it only has about 30,000 students as opposed to 350,000 students. Let's see. So I wanted to kind of contrast what's 42,000. How many is that? It's like a small city in and of itself as far as the number of people working for you. But the largest employer in Las Vegas that I could find is MGM Grand Resorts. They would have roughly 72,500 employees. So if you look at all the different casinos here in Las Vegas, it's not just the MGM. The MGM owns the Bellagio, the Aria, the Mandalay Bay, the Excalibur, Luxor, Park MGM, Delano, which is part of the Mandalay Bay, I believe, and at least 6 other properties. Some of those are locally here, but some are also foreign. So a company that we all kind of know and we live with, MGM. I mean, there's a good chance that you know somebody that works at the MGM in one of these resorts. So with that said, you can see the logistical problem. 378 schools plus charter schools plus another 480 pre-K classrooms, which are kind of most likely within, but they don't necessarily are not within the physical elementary school itself. They might be other outlying locations that these are located in. So big issues with that. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I got into education coming from the Indian gaming industry. In the Indian gaming industry, I was a general manager of 2 smaller Indian casinos, one in Oregon and one in Southern California. From there, I decided it was time to get out and move into education. So that's what I did. I started working for Temecula Valley Unified School District as a part-time campus supervisor. Doing that was basically security. I'd come in at right a little bit before lunch during like the first break, right before the first break of the day, and to monitor the students and monitor access points throughout the school, wherever I might be assigned that day. Stay through the lunch period. Lunch break ran 45 minutes, I think, 50 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. And once everything got settled after the break, I was done. So I didn't stay to the end of the school day. So I think there were maybe 6 or 7 campus supervisors there, 5, I think, or 6, which were full-time, and 2 or 3 of us, which were part-time. I was one of the part-time. And while I was working there part-time, I was also going to school to get my master's in education at Azusa Pacific University, because I was going to become a teacher and teach career technical education. If you can think of what possibly ROP, if you're older like me, programs that are work intense, trade type courses and so forth outside in the community, well, it's kind of advanced a little bit beyond that now. There are some high skilled technical areas in career technical education, but that's basically what I taught. I was over credentialed in California. I had many credentials in career technical education, and I had 2 in the old traditional sense of getting your teaching credential, I had two old certificates. One was in technology, which means I could almost teach anything, almost any course in California that had to do with technology of any type. And I had a second one, which was business and finance. So I taught that as well. In Las Vegas, when I came here, the same thing. I had a business and finance. I had a hotel and marketing and all that type of thing. I had video production because that's kind of like what I'm doing now. Plus, I taught that in Temecula Valley Unified School District. So I taught a lot of different things in programs and so forth. I came here, early retired in Temecula, and came out here and taught for a couple of schools. One a online charter school, which was tied into, I think, Elko School District, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. I can't remember the name of that online program right at this point. Nevada Destinations Institute or something like that, I think it was. And then I worked for a Christian school for about a year and a half till COVID hit, and they ended up closing and moving the school to a new location, and there's the population downsized of students, and being on the bottom end of the teaching as teachers there because I was new. I was one of the ones that didn't get asked to come back. And then I came into Clark County about I think the year after, and got hired in December. Job offered in December. I think it was 2020, if I'm not wrong. And it took them 3 months, almost 3 months, I think. January, February. I think I started right at the end of February or the first week of March before I actually started teaching. And in all that time period, when the teacher from that class left, I think I was told, I think it was in August or September, so right after the school start, they had a substitute teacher teaching them until I got there in February or March. That's amazing that that takes that long to get through the hiring process, the background investigation and all that. So that's something that definitely needs to get fixed in Clark County. And if I was the superintendent, and we're talking about 1,200 to 1,500 teachers short every start of every year and throughout the year, because the turnover is that big, that's one thing that definitely needs to be worked on. All right, so I'm going to talk about transportation next. I want to talk, well, before I go into transportation, I want to talk about my background as a teacher, my background as a business person, and my background as a general manager of a casino. What I might share with you in a few minutes is how really close, as far as the various departments within the school district are to how a large casino is run. Multiple departments with multiple things going on, with multiple different leads, and with a flow chart or a system downward from a board of directors, kind of like the board here, the school board here in Las Vegas, through a superintendent who might be me, the general manager for the two smaller casinos I worked for, as I stated before. And then all the various departments. It's the same here. So let's talk about the first department here, which I knew was huge because you see the buses on the roads all the time, but I didn't know how huge until I started looking at the numbers. Clark County School District has 1,924 buses. This is the data I got off the internet. That is ridiculously amazing. And I read the quote on the article that I got the information from. It transports 124,000 students a day. So I don't know if that's 124,000 in the morning and you're just doubling that up, meaning it's the same ones at the day, so it's just 124, or if that's actually 248,000 students during the day. Either way, it's a lot. That's something that we got to work on. I kind of just wanted to see what the RTC, the Rapid Transit Authority here in Las Vegas, has as far as the number of buses, because I would always think a city's bus system, especially a city this large, would have just the most buses anywhere in the country, not maybe in the country, but anywhere in the area. And I was wrong. There's only 400 buses working for the RTC. So that, to me, as a general manager, and there's got to be a better way to do this. It's got to be taking a large number of resources to purchase, maintain, operate, and staffing-wise personnel to drive them, as well as to repair them, to maintain that fleet of 1,900 and what did I say? 24 buses. So definitely something that needs to be kind of looked at in perspective. How do we fix that? CCSD, I know I'm talking about only CCSD, but that's where I live. And a lot of the larger school districts have some of these things too, depending what community you live in. CCSD has its own police department. Not good, not bad. I don't know them that well to say that they're doing a great job or a poor job. But there's got to be ways of looking at how that operates as well. You know, what other solutions, possibilities might there be to better fund that or defund that or change the funding method or find another method to correct that issue. Because when I was at the Temecula Valley School District, we had a resource officer, which was basically a city police who was actually a sheriff, kind of like here. The Metro Police is actually the sheriff's department as well. So in where I was there, it was the same. The city hired the sheriff to come in and be the police department for Temecula Valley. Murrieta, on the other hand, had its own police department. But what we had was a resource officer from the Temecula Valley Police Department or the Riverside County Sheriff that would oversee or would perform policing duties at the high school. So we'd have at least 3, but there were also several floaters. And this officer at the resource officer at our school was also responsible for, I think, 1 or 2 middle schools and a couple of elementary schools as well. So his primary location would be at the high school. That's where most of the issues generally are. But the rest of the team, as I said before, was the campus supervisors. So a school would have non-uniformed employees working as the first line of security to watch gates and watch student accesses and monitor students on the campus, depending on the school size. Like I said, at Chaparral, where I was, I could be wrong, but I think there was maybe 4 to 5, maybe 6 full-time. And then, like I said, there was 2 to 3 that would come on part-time from the first morning break and stay through the lunch period. So opportunities such as that to work things out within the school district here. Let's look at the budget. Oh man, when I looked at that, this is another one. I kind of compared and contrasted it to the cities. And let me come here. I'm actually looking at a chart here. I could plop it up on the screen. Let me do that for you real quick, so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. I think that's right there. There we go. So I kind of went through the top part here. You can kind of see my highlights where I thought were important and so forth. But I'm already past all that. I'm down here. Where is it? Right here. The budget and school. So I think I'm right there, right? Yeah, you can kind of see it right there on your screen. So budget of $200 million. So I wondered, how much money does a city spend every year? What are some of the city budgets? Well, this is what I found. The largest 100 cities in the United States have an annual budget that is less than $2,146,000,000. So as you're looking at that, the school district in Clark County has $1 billion and 50 million more dollars to spend than well, we're only talking 100 cities here that spend that much. So everybody else under that 100 cities, Clark County spends more. That's crazy. And they break it down like this. 83% is slated for, at least this is the information. I'm not sure this is 100% because I didn't look at the district's books. So again, this is information. You got to take it for granted. You may look somewhere else and find something different. So this is what I found. 83% is slated for payroll and benefits. There was just a big pay increase here in Clark County. I'll tell you, as a teacher with 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, they offered me $40,000 a year to start. In Temecula Valley, I was kind of like in the center, maybe slightly higher than center. And when I left there, I was making $72,500, I think it was, $72,500 a year. So coming from there, and the cost of living is a little more expensive in California, even when I left there in 2018. That's still a lot of money, a big difference. And a $30,000 difference is staggering. It's not $30,000 less cheaper to live here. So that was one of the big reasons I decided to leave. That, and with the uncertainty of what was going to happen the next year with COVID and so forth. But the big one was just the lack of the union. I went to the union and tried to talk to them. Are you a member? I'm not, because I haven't decided if I'm going to stay in the district or not at this point. But they had no desire for me to talk to me. Nobody. Not one. Not one person in the union. So you have to remember, as I wrote here, unions are not there for the students, and sometimes are not even there for the teachers, and not always a participant in ways that matter. So their only issue, for the most part, and I'm not against the union. I think I was running for school board last year. I think I told you about that in the previous video. I ran for school board in District F. I didn't make it, and that's okay. I think that's a big loss based upon, if you look at our school board right now, it is in total disarray. Not to say that I could have saved it. I think it was already set in motion to go in that direction. But it's a mess, especially with the new added four. They were appointed by local communities. I think I mentioned that last week too. Henderson, I think the city of Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas, and I think the county, because they have so much surrounding area that's not incorporated. I think the county appointed these governmental agencies, so the city council and the board of supervisors for the county appointed somebody onto the school board to have a say, a voice, and the school board immediately, the elected ones immediately voted for them not to have basically not to have a voice. They couldn't put a motion on the calendar. They could speak to it, but they couldn't initiate a conversation on the calendar, and they can't vote on anything. So as an advisor, I guess they're truly advisory because they have no real say in anything on the school board. So you just show up and listen and maybe give your 2 words, and then you move on because they have nothing to say. So there you go. 17% of all goes to all other operations. So for maintenance of the facilities, for the busing, the fix and repair buses, for the police department. What else? Any student equipment, like if everybody wanted to get new computers or whatever, they have that much money, $555 million a year out of the $3.2 billion budget to purchase things. The $2,656 million basically goes for salaries and benefits, which kind of makes sense with 42,000 people. I think I even did a calculation. I think it averaged out to around 70, don't get me wrong, I didn't write it down, but I think around $76,000, $74,000 per employee per year. So the teachers union was successful in their attempt to get a pay raise. I think they got, if I'm not wrong, 6 or 8% this year, with all the back pay going back to the beginning of the year, and a 6 or 8% I think next year. So they got pretty close to exactly what they were asking for as far as pay. Some of the educators, depending on what kind of program you're teaching, they got bonuses. Like special ed, I think got $5,000, and if you're in a Title I school, so that's a school based upon what I just read a few minutes ago. Title I schools are underserved, underprivileged children, which I scroll back up a little bit here, which there are roughly 59% fall into, right? So that's amazing. The one thing I was kind of upset about was when, I guess would have been the previous board, right in December before the new board took seats. There were 3 new board members that got on. They voted to determine whether the superintendent would remain, in Clark County. He's been kind of, what would you call it? And it may not be him. It could be anybody that got into this position, and they just wouldn't have been fair to them. He's been, on the fire, on the coals since probably 2.5, 3 years ago. And there's been things that supposedly have come out, through social media that were inappropriate things said about the union's president and so forth, teachers union president and so forth. But anyway, he got a pay raise, like a $75,000 I think dollar pay raise. He was making I think $305 or somewhere around there prior to last December. And even though he got dismissed, and then 2 weeks or a week later, a month later, got reinstated. So one of the trustees, one on the board, changed their minds. They initially said, "Get out of here, you're fired." Said, "I changed my mind, he's coming back." That was the one vote that was determining whether he stayed or left. So his salary jumped from roughly, I think it was $305, I could be wrong, but somewhere around there, $305 to $394,000 a year. Oh, I think when he was making the previous salary, he was like the top 3 of all the school districts in the country. I didn't review the other top 4 schools districts, but there is a good chance he might be making more than them all. And for having a superintendent that was somewhat on the coals and in the fire for so long, and then terminated and then returned, I think that's crazy. That you would give him such a large increase. There was also he brought an HR director, if I'm not wrong, from the same school. He had met her, I believe, working for the Orange County School District in Florida. If I'm not wrong, that's somewhere around the Tampa Bay area, I think. I could be wrong. Check it for yourself. And then came here as a superintendent, or went somewhere else, and then came here as a superintendent, and then she went to a school, I think it was in Maryland. I could be wrong. And so I researched her. It was a small district, very small district, probably not more than 15 to 20 schools, if that. She was making right around, as the director of human resources there, making somewhere around, I think it was $95,000 a year. I could be 10,000 off either direction. And when she came here, they put her promptly at $205,000. Not that that's crazy ludicrous for such a large school district, but I don't think things have been improved at all since she's gotten here over the last year. We're still short a bunch of teachers. A bunch of teachers are still leaving or retiring. We can't fill the number of slots. So that's got to get fixed. How do you fix it? I know I'm focusing on Clark County here because that's what I'm most familiar with, and Temecula Valley. But if you have these same inconsistencies that are running in districts all over the country, this is how we're going to fix it. We've got to recognize these issues, and then we got to come around and fix it. My recommendation for the superintendent here at Clark County doesn't make more than $250 a year, no more than that. And somebody that's at a director position running a department probably shouldn't be more than $175. And so, with that said, I'm going to leave it there. Teachers, they just got a raise to $55,000 as the minimum. But I think what I've heard is they left some of the older teachers behind who weren't making $55,000 a year. That they didn't say, those teachers that are making $52,000 a year, your salary is going to increase $5,000. So now that you're making $57,000, you're going to make the same or make the same income as somebody that's new coming in at $55,000. So I hope they make an adjustment for that. That might definitely hurt the budget. They might move from that 83%, I think it was, of salary and benefits, and it might actually increase, which hurts the bottom line. On the other end, to take care of all those things you need to take care of throughout the district. Right? All right. I don't know if I said this in the last episode or not. I don't think so. But the history of loss of education in Nevada, there were, like California, where there's districts everywhere. Nevada had a bunch of districts, and in 1956, the state legislature consolidated all the districts into a county-only district. So that's what happened here. You can only imagine back in 1956, the size of Las Vegas was probably 5 to 6,000, maybe 10,000 people in the city. That was it. The outlying areas, there was nobody in the outlying areas. You had to, maybe in Boulder City there was 3,000 people living there or something. Uh, that's probably high. There's nobody living in the state. It's 90%, 95% desert. A lot of it's uninhabitable until you get some kind of water or electrical or something put in. Back in that time and age, there were very few generating type motors, to run power in your house. There were and if you had to get gas to fill it, you either paid an arm and a leg to have it brought to you, or you had to drive miles and miles to get it and bring it back to your place. So it was just nobody was living here really in the state at that time. So at that time, it kind of made sense to consolidate these many school districts, which maybe had 15 or 20 kids in it, into one consolidated district that everybody would pretty much get the same education across the board instead of hit and miss. They're teaching this over there, they're teaching that over there. So this gives the opportunity for some uniformity. But there comes a point when a school district gets too large, it gets out of that sweet spot. You even see corporations selling off pieces of a corporation or totally separating that corporation from another corporation when they start it. If you think about SpaceX, why is Tesla not part of SpaceX or vice versa? They're totally similar technologies, right? To some aspect. Advanced electronics, advanced batteries and power systems, advanced technology as far as software and engineering and so forth, driverless cars and all that. So there are a lot of similarities, but why do they break off and why are they two different things? It's the same here. If something gets too big, you need to kind of break it apart to make it more efficient, to make it work better. You don't want to make it to the point where there's so many break aparts that you can't have uniformity too, but there is a sweet spot as far as the size and so forth. And Clark County, in my estimation, is way too big. I'm not familiar with New York or Miami-Dade, but I think if you probably looked at their curriculum and so forth, they're running a little bit better than Nevada, since Nevada's at the bottom of the list. But it's still, not near the top. Same with Los Angeles County school districts. They're in shambles too. They're a mess. They're too big. They need to diversify and break it apart into pieces a little bit smaller to make them more usable. At the state level, you have a Board of Education, or the state Board of Education, that takes care of licensing for teachers. They kind of set some of the curriculum regulations and so forth and so on. As long as you have that set in somewhat on stone, and you can possibly, teachers are pretty good at sharing teaching information and curriculum. We find, sharing amongst ourselves just makes us better and our teaching better, and the kids get that. But changing it continuously, we've gone from the test, studying for the test only, study for the test, and then a week later, test is done. Oh, but you have a final coming up. Oh, I'll keep that test so I can study it for the final. And then once the school year's over, boom, it's gone, right? You study for a test. You knew all the answers for the test, but you knew nothing about life and how to live through life. So that's where we were to now this new realization of thinking out of the box. And what we thought before is not the way it necessarily has to be. And that could be whether it's gender related, whether it's mathematical related. 2 plus 2 doesn't always equal 4. And let me tell you why it doesn't always equal 4. But in reality, 2 plus 2 in math is 4. And I always keep going back to that, but it's the truth. There are some truths and there are some that are not truth. So I think the current education where we had decided to go, starting to get students to think for themselves is good and is the right course of education. But you can already see where we're already starting to reverse that back after 4 or 5 years back towards studying for a test or something similar to that, or going totally away from core curriculum. We're not going to teach you English. We're not going to teach you math. We're not going to teach you these because there's more important things you need to learn. And as parents, as a community, you need to say, no, that's not what your job is. Your job is to basically teach the basics of these things: reading, writing, arithmetic, math, science, history. History is prime because if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat the failures you made in the past. So, bam, there you go. All right. So the school board here in Las Vegas, kind of scroll down a little bit, are elected to 4-year terms. They kind of are split every 2 years. So 3 district members, I think, get turned over 2 years, and then the next 2 years, I think it's 4. I think there's 7 districts, if I'm not wrong, in the area, and then the next 4 get turned over. So, bam, that's how it works here. I talked about the no voting members that got added. Wow, I didn't even know that was happening, and then I saw it on the news when they decided not to give them any choice, any voting power. Wow. Superintendent, so I'm kind of giving you a flow chart here. He's appointed by the school board, oversees the operations and departments through hired administration, so they'll hire all the people within this department. I looked at a flow chart for Clark County School District. It's massive. It's all over the place. We have several departments that are run by the same person, which I guess cost saving wise, that's good. But why isn't it incorporated into something similar, I guess I would say, because that would only make sense, and downsize it. So anyway, that's what we're looking at here. And then I kind of listed some of the departments that you should see, and I kind of listed them to what I think is vital for an actual school system to work. And I had education and curriculum, you can see it right here, as number 1 for the longest time as I was doing this. And then I said, you know what, because I had communication towards the middle bottom. And I said, you know what is the most important to make sure everything works? And I hate to say it, but communication. Communication with parents, communication with the community, whether that's the media and digitally. You just have to have all those parts and pieces together. I think the parents they're paying for it. I think last week I said students always come to me and ask me, Mr. Corum, education is free. I deserve this, and I say, stop, hold on, wait a minute. Think about this. Does money grow on trees? No. Can you dig money up out of the ground? Sometimes, if you know where the treasure's hidden, right? You see all these treasure shows on TV nowadays. But no, the schools are not free. Teachers get paid, the administrators get paid, the security people get paid, coaches get paid, everybody gets paid. The people that come in and build stuff, they get paid. Where does that money come from? I don't know. It comes from taxes from your parents that work their butts off and they own a house. It comes from taxes, sales tax. It comes from people buying lotto or lottery tickets. It comes from all different places and everywhere else, from people that live in your communities to pay for you. And eventually you're going to be doing the same. So education is not free. Somebody's going to be paying for it forever and ever and ever. So get that through your head. Education is not free. You're going to be paying for the next generation's education. Oh. So kind of wake them up a little bit as far as what education is, and it's not free. So communication, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest issues with every school district. I had the same issue in Clark County as I had with that in Temecula Valley when I was teaching there. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch to think there's something needs to be done there. I think us as parents, we've kind of divvied off from forever. I'm as guilty as maybe you and maybe my parents were. My parents wanted to be sure that I was doing my homework. They would ask me nightly, did you get your homework done? When I come home from school or from my sporting events that night, I always did my homework first and tried to get it done before dinner. And if I didn't, I had to do it after dinner, because my free time was after dinner to watch TV or go out and play or do whatever I wanted to do, up until about 9 o'clock, until I was in high school. And I went to bed. That's another issue with their kids today. They do not go to bed. They stay up forever, all night. I talk to many of my students. They're coming in and sleeping, trying to fall asleep at the desk and stuff. What time did you go to bed last night? I didn't. What time did you go to bed last night? Oh, maybe around 2 o'clock in the morning. Why are you going to bed so late or go to sleep? Oh, I was watching a video. Oh, I was playing a game. Oh, I was texting my friend. So taking cell phones away and monitoring your kids, making sure that they're taken care of and doing what they're supposed to do to get to school on time and so forth. That's the parent's responsibility. Making sure the homework is done. Maybe you don't know how to do the homework. Maybe there's somebody else in the neighborhood or a friend or a family member that does. Maybe an older child, sibling, if you're having issues with your younger child. The other thing is safety. Are your kids bringing to school in the morning? Are you checking their backpacks? What are they doing at home? Are they playing with swords? Are they playing with fake knives? Are they playing with fake guns? Check their social media. As soon as a lot of kids are getting phones at 6, 7, 8 years old now. See what they're watching. See who they're talking to. Check it out. Check and see what the communication is between these. That's your job as a parent. And then it's also part of your job as a parent to get back to the school. And the school needs to make the opportunity available and needs to be a 50-50 partner on this. But I had so many kids in my class as a high school teacher. I had probably somewhere between 30 and 35 school kids in each of my classes times 5 classes. So you're talking 150 to 200 kids in that I'm seeing every day basically. How much time do I have as a human being, as a person, to follow up with parents that kids are having problems? I was due diligent on putting grades into the software where their parents could check the grades. I understand some parents don't have the technology or the skills. Well, then the school needs to show the parent on how to obtain this information, and so they can be a part of their child's education and make sure that they're doing what they need to do on their side, so the school and them are mirroring each other to get for the best of their student. That is missing in education right now. It's huge. We just give our kids to the school and expect them to do everything. They come home, that's all right. I'm not following up with my kid. I'm not asking if they got their homework done. I'm not even feeding them. In fact, I got to go to work as soon as they get home or after they get home within an hour. So it's just not going to work for me. Well, they're your kids. You have to be responsible for that. You have to make a time. You got to set up guidelines. You have to set up responsibilities for them and for yourself. And then the school and you need to clearly get on the same plan and communicate that back and forth. How many parents have called me as a teacher? It's rare. How many parents show up on back to school night, which in my opinion is usually, at least the schools I went to, a month to 2 months after school starts. That's too late. It needs to be either prior to school starting, or it needs to be within the first 2 weeks of school starting. The parents need to come meet the teacher. They should already have met the teacher the year before. I know that's not always set in stone, but some districts, the classes are kind of set in the summertime or at the end of the next school year. You kind of have a preview or may know who the teachers are going to be next year. If you want to make any changes because this teacher you don't think fits the needs of your student, then that's the time to make the changes before the school year starts, not after it starts. Because now it just becomes a confusing mess for administrators, for teachers, of the student leaving and the new student coming, or whatever it might be. So those things need to be fixed. Communication is huge, and parents need to be brought on board. They need to be a part of the curriculum discussion. I believe in core education for everybody. Reading, writing, math, science, history, physical education. In the middle school, health. I think I might actually write some of that here. Yeah, it's right in front of you on the screen here. So, talking about education curriculum right here, you can kind of see what I think about core curriculum. These are the areas that fall in there. Physical education, art, music, 7th and 8th, or 8th grade health, depending on your district or your school. Where should all these courses be? In these classes, pre-K through 5th grade. For elementary, 6 and 8 for majority of middle schools. Some middle schools are pre-K, or some elementary schools go through 6th grade, depending on where you live and what district you're in. And you only have a 7th and 8th grade middle school. Or it's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade middle school with the 3 grades, 10th, 11th, and 12th in high school. So it just depends on where you are. All right, and you can adjust those. Career technical education in 6th through 8th grade, middle school, STEAM, STEM, coding, typing, robotics, personal finance, digital awareness, and ethics on using your cell phone and on a computer. It's huge. know what websites to go and to stay away from for safety reasons, how to report issues of somebody coming after you or you think might be abusing your child online and so forth. So stuff they need to learn. Let's see, 9 through 12, again, CTE, and we're going to create career pathways. Not everybody is going to a college and a university. Maybe I didn't. I went to a junior college to work on getting my AA degree, my Associates of Arts degree, because as a law enforcement officer, because it got me promoted and got me pay raises faster. But that was from age roughly 21 through about 24. So I didn't go right after high school. I did it later. Same with my bachelor's degree. In law enforcement, I was there for almost 17 years. And then I went into the Indian gaming industry, and I started out kind of like in a advisory manner as a regulatory compliance officer and became a regulatory compliance manager. But if I wanted to get promoted to a director or higher position, I had to get a bachelor's degree. So I went back to school and got 2 bachelors, one in business management and one in human resource management. So not everybody's going to the college or university right after high school. Some of them are already know. I want to do photography. I want to go into TV production. I want to go into some kind of class where I can do computer security and so forth. Some high schools offer that as a career technical education course where you can actually get a credential or some kind of certification going through a 2 to 3 course program through 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades to get that. And when you leave, you're basically ready to get a job. Or you're ready to go into another trade school or technical school to take you along the way, advance you further. And in fact, when I was in Temecula Valley, we were tied to a couple of junior colleges where a lot of our students were getting college credit while they were going to school in the high school. That needs to be a part of Clark County School District and every school district throughout the country to open up those opportunities. Next, I have athletics. So, starting in maybe 6th grade to 8th grade, you're going to have some kind of intramural athletics between, schools and so forth, middle schools. And then you have the high school sports, of course, 9 through 12. ROTC, Officers Reserve Training Corps, those that might have some interest or looking for a curriculum that has to do with the military. Of course, that needs to be incorporated in all the schools. Electives. And so this is an opportunity, mostly when you're a junior and a senior, to take classes of interest that need to be approved by the school board and the principal and the parents, in my opinion, to teach. Maybe we wanted to teach an astronomy class. Well, that doesn't really fall into a science class, maybe. It doesn't really fall into a math class or a history class or anything like that. It's an elective class. You can take this for your own personal self-growth and seeing if that's something you want to do in the future at the university level, maybe, by taking kind of a beginner's class in astronomy or something. Space science. So elective, something like that. Political science, philosophy, things like that would fall into possibly electives type classes that, again, need to be approved through the district for whatever that class might be, showing the curriculum, what's going to be in it, and so forth. For parental review, I am very strong and believe that parents are the key and the center core to education for their children throughout the country. So that's the education part. Then we jump into human resources, which deals a lot with the payroll, with hiring, finding talent is what we call it nowadays. Benefits and so forth like that. If there's any kind of issues with sexual harassment at the schools or with fellow employees, stuff like that, that's what human sources would normally take care of. Transitioning and retirement and all that type of stuff. Finance, they're the ones that control the money and pay all the bills. They keep the budget. They're the ones that go to all these various departments and figure out what their needs are for the next year, so we can create a school-wide budget to present to the school board and and to the state for our financing, where we're going to get our money for the next year. Information technology is huge, growing department, going to continue to grow and expand. All the students, I think now in Clark County, have availability to some kind of laptop or something similar that they can take home and do schoolwork with, as well as a lot of other districts throughout the country are doing the same. You need to have fast internet speed at the schools, Wi-Fi speed. It's got to be monitored and maintained. A lot of video conferencing and stuff is going on. A lot of visual trainings and stuff are going on. So it's important to have a good information technology system and keep it update. Food and beverage. I just told you a few minutes ago, excuse me, about how many people were feeding that Clark County School District. Temecula Valley, we were feeding a lot of kids there too in the morning, breakfast and lunch. Not nearly as many as they're doing here. So that might be something we look at setting up and having an outside company do rather than being an internal. I don't know. We'd have to go back and see how much the cost and expenses there are. Put it out to a bid, set up a plan. Possibly there's a big cost savings there in doing that. Facilities, maintenance of our schools, painting, cleaning up gum off the street, taking out the trash, sweeping the grounds, cleaning the inside, wiping down desks, wiping down floors, bathrooms, and so forth. All that stuff has to be done and taken care of as well. Legal, we are bound to get sued by somebody or we're going to do something, and we need to make sure that we're staying on the legal side of things, the laws that have come down from the federal, state, and local levels as far as how do we run our schools. And then if we get sued, we need to have some way of preparing ourselves for our legal defense. So while it's not a huge department, it needs to be incorporated somewhere in our school system, unfortunately. I'm like a guy that would say, just let on. I mean, if you do something bad, then own up to it and take care of it. And if you didn't do anything bad, then, why are you suing me? I mean, it's just ridiculous for some of the lawsuits that are going on nowadays. But if around Las Vegas here, all you got to do is look up at a billboard and you'll see literally hundreds of them with attorneys on the front, mostly for injury attorneys. Well, you can get hurt in the elementary school, you could get hurt in the high school, you could get hurt in the middle school. So they probably would be the same attorneys you might call. So we need to have something. Police. Security is important, especially in today's world. Unfortunately, I remember back in the 70s when we had metal detectors at schools in California, and we had metal detectors in Chicago and New York and so forth because of the gangs and everything that were there. I'm not a proponent for metal detectors going in and out of a school system or campus, but there needs to be some kind of security curtain around schools to some aspect today. But it's looking out of the box. As a law enforcement officer, retired, Deputy Marshal and Deputy Sheriff out of San Diego County, and as a former Public and Traffic Safety Commissioner for the City of Temecula for almost 5 years, I bring a unique perspective. And as a campus supervisor working on a school campus, as a teacher working on a school campus, I have a unique perspective as to how we could run and operate and do things as far as that. Looking for outside opportunities. Do we bring in somebody else to actually do our policing for us? I'm not opposed to looking at new things and new ideas. Maybe it's already been done. And if it has, then why would we waste our time to re-investigate that? But I would want to see the evidence, the core evidence, and see if everything was included. You're going to want to do that for yourself if you're setting up some kind of school program. Transportation, same here. In Temecula Valley, very few kids are transported to school on buses. There has to be almost like a special need there for kids to be transported to school. So with that said, I would definitely look at opportunities to review and seek better ways of providing transportation to 124,000 students every day that are currently using our school buses. I have some on the top of my head. If you want to call me, we can discuss some of those ideas. All right. I can already see somebody at a school board saying, hey, I'm going to call this guy, or just give me the answer. Just give me the answer. So I want to just run across some of the similarities for the casinos. My background, like I said, as a general manager of casinos, my casino was not the size of Wynn Resorts. But if you look here, it's a $3,757,000,000 annual gross profiting company. So when you look at this, slots, look at all the different departments within the slots department. Gaming operations, not so unlike an education, a school. Finance, there you go. Auditing, accounting, cage, count, team, regulatory, and legal. Marketing, players club, promotions, and so forth. These are all the departments and subcategories within all these departments. Surveillance can either be a standalone or under security. facilities, retail shops, a resort, and so forth. So quite a few. Corruption. Ooh, that's a big word. I don't know if I could actually say that. Corruption in education. I worked for Marine Corps Community Services on Camp Pendleton. What we did there is provide Marine and Navy personnel as well as their families, but not too often their families. It was limited to what their spouses and children could get. Primarily military people wanting to continue their education while they were in the military. So we'd offer courses there on the base. We'd help them with tuition assistance and so forth and so on. Through the federal government or through some kind of military program. A lot of the time, I think they got $5,000 a year when I was there. I think it might have gone up to $5,500, but they got tuition or money towards tuition to go to school. They're on base and so forth, or online school. But what I found inconsistent was every year, and as a parent with 4 kids, my kids are all grown up now, but the cost of education. Then I went to school on my own in my, early 40s, late 50s, mid 50s, to get early 50s to get my master's degree and my bachelor's degree in the casino industry, so I could become a general manager. And how much tuition it had risen for me. I didn't get any free money from the government. I got FAFSA loans from the federal government, which I have all paid back since. And I think I finished paying those back maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago's tops. So for roughly 10 years, I was paying student loans just like you, plus had a full-time job, plus was running probably my hair salon at the time, plus coaching 2 or 3 soccer teams, plus having 4 kids, plus working full-time. So all the stuff I was doing what was necessary to get ahead in life. My son, I hate to say it, I love the guy to death, but he doesn't have my work ethic. And probably not many people do. But FAFSA, the cost of education continually goes up every year. And I'm not talking about 2 to 3%, which you might think is a normal gain with whatever inflation is that year. The last 3 years we've had inflation through the ceiling. I know they're telling you it's probably 15%, but it's probably closer to 30% inflation or more since, I hate to say it, Joe Biden took office. It's gone up quite substantial, and all you got to do is look at your pocketbook, look at your bank accounts, look at what's left at the end of the month if you're making still close to the same income you were making when Joe got into office. It's common sense, right? Things are costing more, right? You know it. The degree programs, what are your kids going to school for? I think last week I talked about sending your kids or telling your kids to go to the junior college for the first 2 years of their education. It gives them a chance to kind of figure out what they want to do, get all those basic classes out of the way the first 2 years of college at either a free, well, it's not free, but but you know what I mean, where the tuition is either paid by the government through our taxes or it's darn near free. California, I could be wrong. I think it might be around $50 a unit or something. So a 3-unit class is $150 to take, as opposed to the university. It's going to be $1,800 to $3,000 course, depending on where you go. So my oldest daughter learned it the hard way. We tried to get her to go to the community college right next to the university in University of California, San Marcos, and she was just, I'm going to the university, until she figured out she got there and couldn't get any of the classes because they were all filled. And then they said, you want the same class? Just go across the highway to the community college. And she did, but she got stuck paying big time tuition at the Cal State. And she said, I wish I would have listened to you guys. So I'm telling you the same. Do the same with your student. Send them to a junior college and then send them to Harvard after that for the last 2 years. You cut your tuition in half, or at least by a third. I don't know if they charge more as a junior and a senior, but you cut the tuition way down. And nobody looks at the first 2 years. They just look at the degree from the university at the 4th year when you graduate. So first 2 years, for example, I went to Cal State, or I went to San Jacinto College in Southern California. Got my 2 years. I had a good grade point average, let's say a 3.8 or something, 3.5, and I was able to get into Harvard or Baylor or some other big name schools or Stanford or Berkeley and finish out there and get my bachelor's degree. It doesn't say it doesn't say San Jose, or it doesn't say, what was the school I said? It doesn't have the junior college name on it. It just has Cal Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, as on your diploma. So nobody cares about the first 2 years. So be smart about that. Student programming. Oh, yes. So as a teacher, I've never programmed my students. I just kind of gave them the straight truth and told them, you know what, I will not fail you. If you fail, it's because you decided not to do the work. At the college level, I went from a 2.8 student in high school to a 3.5 for my AA degree to a 4.0 for my bachelor's degree. And a lot of that is because of the things I learned through life and just working hard and putting the time and effort into it. So much more than anybody else. That's just how you get ahead in life. Selling the university's pathway as only an alternative to financial success, personal gains, and prosperity. I may have told you about, we had at the high school in Temecula, one of the vice principals was kind of directing a career, or not really a career, it was a college university promotional event, trying to get the students pepped up for what they needed to do to get to that college, get to that university, because that is our goal in Temecula Valley Unified School District. Everyone's going to graduate ready and prepared to go to the college or the university. And as a career technical education teacher, I went to that vice principal and said, hey, what about the 30% up there, or better yet, the 70% up there that aren't going to the college or university? They're just looking for a trade. They're looking for something that's going to get them to the next level when they leave here and graduate. He had no answer for me. In fact, he was upset with me. And later, like a week later, he comes to me and says, Dave, I'm sorry, but you're right. We don't offer them anything. But that's our district. Our district basically is just preparing kids for the college and university. We're expecting all of our kids to go there. And that's a disservice to the students and the community. In my opinion, 70% of the students have nowhere to go once they graduate. That's bad. Fix it in your school district. University efficiency, government strings attached. I kind of told you the two kind of curriculums that we float back and forth. The Prussian system, where it's kind of a conformative type education system. You kind of study to the test. They give you all these things that you need, but you really don't think out of the box. And the second one, where they kind of are creative and get you to try to think out of the box. You know, how do we get this chair back here? How do we get that chair to be more comfortable, to spin better, to vibrate, to have speakers in there? So now it's a gaming chair and a chair, or whatever, you know, or a 3D chair, or whatever it might be. It automatically, as you turn your head, it just spins with you. Whatever it might be. How do, you know, get those juices out. That's what has made America America, and that's why so many students from other countries came here originally, was for the opportunity to go to our colleges and universities and learn those types of things. Unfortunately, government has a way of bouncing back and forth. And about the time we start getting somewhat good in one, they bounce us back to the other one. We're starting from ground zero. So studying for the test type of education, I think, is where most of us are starting to go back to now, after about 4 or 5 years of going through the extra, through the other one where you're thinking out of the box. Mandates to districts and programs continually changing. I hate to say it. I hate to say a lot of stuff. But special interest groups, oh man, they are the worst to education ever. Special education or special interest groups, they're the ones that come to after the schools with lawsuits, like the ACLU and other organizations similar to that. Filing a lawsuit, you know, the state or the county, we're cutting off your funding for this or that because you're not doing this or that, and it's required for you to do this or that. Continually changing the rules along the way. Usually when you do one of these, you're helping one group and you're just disassociating another group. There's got to be a sweet spot in that as well. As like I was talking about, to the size of a school district, there's got to be a sweet spot here too. You know, Not everything can be done by every district. What it takes Temecula Valley to accomplish something with only only 29,000 students, as opposed to Clark County with 315,000 students, is astronomical amounts of money, especially if the program is very, very intensive. Special education is one of those programs where in Clark County the teachers just got a $5,000 increase because it's an intensive program. I recall at Temecula Valley, I always had special needs kids in my classes. Always. Um, it was rarely not a class that I didn't have at least maybe two, if not three, special needs kids in my class. There was one class where it was a shop class where they were around bandsaws and other stuff like that, where I kind of just said, I just can't take them because, they might hurt themselves in here. But at some aspect, they're like an IEP kid, a student, which is a student that's on a learning program. Meaning, as a teacher, I had to set up a separate kind of program. So I'd teach a curriculum in class one day or do a lecture, and then maybe I had 5 or 6, 10 kids that had IEPs, and depending if they were similar or different, I could group them, or if they were different, I had to individually discuss with each student, go over the curriculum, make sure they understood what was going on. So if I had 5 students and I have a 55-minute class, and it takes me 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do my lecture before I have all the students start working on whatever the lecture was about, 5 times 5 is 35 minutes. So 35 minutes plus the 15 minutes, 45, 50 minutes, I got 5 minutes left to help any other students in the class. That's unfair. I hate to say it, but it's unfair to the students that don't have the IEP. So I'm taking the time to help the IEP students, but I'm neglecting, not by choice, but because what I'm given, the other students in the classroom. You want to fix education, in my opinion, as a teacher, that's one of the areas that definitely need to be fixed. But when you get to no kid left behind, when you get to equal education and equality for every student, why I agree to that, the methods taken to get to that point need to be thought out and performed in a different manner. We would all hate for our kid to be in a special needs class. Depending on the severity of the special need, that happens currently today in all school districts. But we try to incorporate some of these kids, but there are some that need more help than others. Especially, and that includes language to some aspect. You get multiple languages in a classroom. I, unfortunately, as a teacher, only speak one. I wish I spoke more than one language at this point in my life, but that was my parents' fault. I come with an English background, Canadian, and a German background on my mom's side, and I wish they would have spoke German to me. I wish I would have learned the German language. Coming from Southern California, we were kind of disdained on Spanish, but at my point in my life now, I wish I spoke Spanish fluently. I have a niece, well, a nephew whose daughter, I don't know what that would make her, my second niece, a niece who's in a kind of a dual school where half the day is in English and the other half is in Spanish, everything. So it's like they turn a switch on, they turn a switch off. From 8 a.m. to noon, we talk English. From noon to 3, we talk Spanish. That would be awesome, in my opinion. I wish I would have had something like that back then. But setting up programs, it's hard the way we have a system now where all inclusive students are in the same class. No matter if they have they don't have an issue, whether they have an IEP, whether they have special needs and need assistance in some other meaning, manner, or way. So I often have special needs kids. I often had IEP kids and just normal kids like everybody that were in my class. But it's nearly impossible for a teacher to take care. And that's where the parents have to come in. They need to be vocal for their kids, and they have to be able to work with the teachers. Sometimes we could switch up the classes with the students. Sometimes we can't. You need to have that conversation with the teacher to get on the same point. This is what I'm going to try to do with your child. On your side at home, this is what you need to do to make sure that we follow through and we work together. Again, coming from a community such as Las Vegas, where it's I think I said it was 84 or 89% racially mixed. That can be awfully hard, especially if there's a lot of foreign languages being spoken. I speak English and they only speak Tagalog, which is a Filipino language. Very hard for us to communicate, parents and me. So there's got to be a method to improve that. What else? Special interest groups, poor and wasteful processes, tons of those. I think that's something the Human Resources Department needs to take on, and the Curriculum Department need to take on. How we can increase and benefit stuff. I listed all kinds of things there: communication, team relationships, hiring processes. Like I said, it took over from the job offer to the time I started working for Clark County was literally, I think I got hired before, or offered before Christmas time of 2020, if I'm not wrong. Somewhere around maybe the 15th or the 20th. By the time we got through all the background stuff and I actually started my first day, I think it was March 3rd or something like that. So 2.5, almost 3 months from the time I got offered the position till I actually started working in the background process. That has definitely got to get fixed. It's a huge problem. And then on the backside, when I decided not to come back the next school year, not one person from HR, not one, no administrator at my school. And I was wishing, where are you? Why don't you come talk to me? I just started working here. Nobody came to me. I went to the union. Nobody talked to me. You want to know why our teachers in Clark County are so upset with everything? It's because the barriers that are put up between the union and the real teachers. They'll hear everything, the ones that that they may not want to hear, but the ones that are really there to do a job and do it right, nobody listens to them. Not the HR, not the principal. The principal, I thought, at our school was excellent. I thought he was going to do an outstanding job. I think he was motivated. He worked hard. I'm not going to give you his name because that's not important. But I think he let me down by not coming to me. The vice principal I was assigned to, when she found out I had decided not to come back, she just turned the off switch on me. And I'm not going to give you her name as well either. But that's not what you do. You just don't turn people off. And that needs to be fixed, especially in Clark County if they want to hold their teachers and keep them. It doesn't matter what you pay somebody. If they're not happy and don't like what they're doing, well, they may like what they're doing, but don't like the circumstances of where they are to do that task or that job, they're not going to stay. They're going to leave. So you want to fix Clark County or any school district and you have high teacher turnover, you need to fix that point, number one. Communication between mostly the HR department and the school administration to the teachers. I think that a lot of teachers just don't have the administrators, don't have the background. Most of them are teachers. They came up through that type of a system. They don't have the knowledge or the background on how to be a supervisor, how to communicate up and down the chain. And as a general manager and as somebody that started and worked in HR, has a degree in HR, human resources relationships, and listening to my employees at the casinos and my direct reports at casinos and so forth, I was always one of the somebody may not have loved me, but the employees definitely liked me. I was always there for them. My door was always open for any of them to walk in and talk to me. All right, so I think we've kind of hit all the nuts on the top of the nutshell that's now pretty much cracked open. I want to talk about just a couple more things. Specialist interest groups, got to get them out of the education. They just have to go away. I know they think they're fighting for the best interests of everybody involved, but that's generally not true. They have one select minority community they're fighting for, or maybe fighting for, and everybody else they don't care if they bulldoze them over. They just got to go. Government changes, we talked about that. The government just has to kind of set some guidelines, make some tweaks or modifications, but a lot of the stuff comes from special interest groups that eventually drills down into education. Where do these ideas come from? Well, let me see. I'm running for the assembly board, And there's this group that really wants to promote something in education, a textbook, or maybe, or some kind of philosophy, or some kind of idea, or something that's currently not in the education system. And they send me, and they send me, and they send me money, and they get me in front of these people, and take me in front of more people. And so I win the election. I owe these people something, right? They're the ones that got me into power in the election, right? This is how government works. And now I'm going to submit legislation to put sexual education into my school. Why? Because if I don't, these guys are going to be all over me. I'm not going to ever get reelected. And I want to be a career politician. I don't just want to go to the office, be in office for 2 years or 4 years. I want to be there for 24 years. The general public hasn't given me anything. In fact, I only got maybe $600 in donations from the general public. But this guy gave me 50 grand. And that's what put me over the top. Now you know how education truly works and how politics truly work. Us, the Joe citizen, they don't care. They don't care about us. Until we fix that in the government and then stop it from flowing down into our education programs and so forth, it's going to be a continual problem. What else? I already said better parent. And as a career technical education, I went out of my box. I went and spent time with employers and businesses in the community, depending on what kind of classes I was teaching. And I tried to find support, whether it was internships for my students, whether it was cash or equipment or something like that. I'll help train the next set of employees coming from high school for you if you can help me help them get there. And that's an incentive. Isn't that the same as what you just said about a special group giving money to a politician? Well, perhaps in some way, but it's different in that I'm trying to help this student or these groups of students because I don't have the finances coming from the state or the government or the school to support that kind of program or that training. Why doesn't that company provide what it needs so I can provide what they need? Good valued employees that are ready to go when they leave high school to go work for them. It makes sense. It's common sense. In fact, I ran a shop class and I did the math in Temecula Valley. So we were using materials, all kinds of different stuff. I had $2.75, I think, for each student for the school year. $2.75 for each student for the school year. I had 5 shop classes, 1 a day, let's say, with roughly, or 5 different classes because they would come to me once, was it once a week? No, they'd come every day. So I think I had like 2 or 3 shop classes a day. So they would be with me 5 days a week. So 30, 70, 105 kids. Do the math. $2.75 times 105 kids. It's nothing. It's like $500 for the whole school year. So yeah, I'm going to look outside to see if there's something I can get from somebody that's going to help me provide what my students need, and that's materials and equipment to get them through the process of being ready to get out into the real school, into the real world and make money and survive. That's the reality of education. All right, so I guess I am done. I don't know if I hit the topic that I actually wanted to hit. I compared and contrasted basically a casino. I kind of showed that to you, the outline, to contrast it to the outline of an education or school district. For years, I've always heard, you know what? Schools and school districts need to be run by teachers. Yep, run by teachers. Well, you can see that a teacher that graduates to a principal, a vice principal, and then to a principal, and then to a superintendent can completely fail, even with a PhD. And I'm not going to point a name or say a name, but you can kind of get a gist of who I'm talking about. And it may not be totally that person's fault. And that person is not the only one that this has happened to. It's happened to many. They are not prepared to run a a $3.2 billion business corporation, a small city. They are just not prepared to do that. They may think they are, they may think they're doing a great job, but the results didn't prove themselves over time. So my suggestion is one, large school districts, maybe something no more than 100, maybe, I know, depends on the district, how well they're performing. If a school district has 300 schools and they're performing, above the 50th percentile nationwide, then maybe you keep doing what you're doing. But if your school district is not performing in the top 50% of the school districts in the country, and it's extremely large, it might be time to diversify and split apart a little bit, because the reason it was set up for example, Clark County in 1956, it's flipped on its head right now. There are 315,000 kids in the school district, or more or less, somewhere in that ballpark. It's a small city in size. It's a budget bigger than most of the cities in the United States. Things need to be fixed. I heard some things about how their auditing department has worked with the same auditor for multiple years, doing not only the audit, but the backup audit to their audit. If that is happening, that should be illegal in every state, and you should have different auditors doing different audits, and not the same auditor. And the auditors should rotate, whether it's the auditor that audits the auditor, and vice versa, or bringing in new auditors and so forth. That needs to happen every 3 to 5 years, because it just needs to. Somebody providing all your food, all your beverages for your meals, or supplying just a specific item for a certain period of time, forever, that's unheard of in the real world, in the business world. It needs to go to a program where there are bids that go out every 3 to 5 years, and you're bidding for that process. They need to be graded and marked every year as far as how they're performing and how they're doing, and whether their services are up to par. Services and or the things they provide are up to par. You may all remember, if you're old enough, that there was a $2,000 toilet the Air Force or the Army or something was buying and putting in installations. Toilet still cost $200, or maybe it was a toilet seat handle. I don't remember, but it was something like that. A toilet seat handle for $200, I could run down to Home Depot and buy it for $7 to $15, depending what it is. So, looking at that, looking for opportunities to find ways of making your education system, your little city, all your departments more efficient. Whether it's electrical, or electronic, through information technology, so we can create forms and cut out people that do the tabulation and so forth. There are numerous ways to reduce costs and expenses, so the kids are getting more of that money towards them and so forth. As teachers, look at 83%, 18,000 of those are teachers out of the 42,000 population. Staff in the school district, where is that? Right here. 42,000 employees, 18,000 of them teachers. So what are the teachers making? Is it fair and equitable based upon state to state, district to district comparison? Like I said, they offered me, with 2 bachelor's and master's degree and 12 years of education, they offered me, when I came to Clark County, minimum wage, $40,000. That is not fair. That is not what a good teacher, which I would like to think that I am, would accept and take and want to teach in your school district, when I could go somewhere else and make more, or move to somewhere else where the cost of living is even less than here, and then still take that $40,000. So something to think about. Equity needs to be across the board. There needs to be these comparisons. We get so wrapped up in new processes, new things, that we forget all about the old stuff in the education, the things that work. We try to impress and make things bigger and grander and find the best trade names and secrets that we can to just make it so grander for our communities and our parents and our kids that we leave the real education behind. It's time to get back to basics. Teach our kids what they need to know. Teach them how to survive in life, think out of the box, and prepare them either for a career in a technical field, trade, or something like that. So when they get out of high school, they can go to a technical trade school or go right in as a beginner in some trade that they've chosen and want to move in and follow, or prepare them for a high school or a college or a university if that's their goal. But also help them to know how to go to the JC and then transition into the four-year university to save all that money and heartache and everything else, especially their parents. What else? There's something else that I forgot, but I'm sure that will come in the future. So anyway, I hope I hit most of the topics on this. I know this has been very long. I'm sorry about that. How do we make it work for all? Communication, like I said, right here. If we follow the flow chart, my flow chart, communication, which is right here. If you can see it, I think so. Communication is number one. Education and curriculum, staying to these areas, strictly to them. That's what education's about. And then having all the support from these other departments to make sure it's all working. And finding the best value for the assets we have to support our students, our kids. They're our kids. This is the next generation. These are our next future leaders. If we don't provide them the best quality education, the best training, and prepare them for what's ahead, then we did a disservice to not only ourselves, but to them in the future. They need to know what they don't know. And with that said, I think I'm done. So I think this is going to end, at least for now, my education sequence, my three parts here. I want to stop here. I'm always going to leave room to come back and discuss items that may pop out of wherever, or something that may show up at a Clark County school district. If it's happening here, there's a good chance it might be happening to you. I think Clark County has just gone through some bad karma, if you're into that type of thing, over the last few years. But I think it starts with leadership and works its way down. And that doesn't necessarily just mean the superintendent, if you know what I mean. It starts at the state legislature and works its way all the way down through the school system. I'm sorry. I'm allergic to education. With that said, I think I'm done. You guys have a great day and a great week, and we'll come back to you next week with probably something that has to do with the election that's coming up and why. If Trump, which he most likely will, doesn't become the nominee, why he can't win. It doesn't matter why he can't win. We'll talk to you then. I'm going to piss a lot of you off then. Take care and have a great day. Bye.